And the Oscar goes to...
Here we go. This is
Godzilla.
Don't you just love it when things fall into place? Not only did Godzilla Minus One kick the super out of every other hero that happened to release around the same time in theaters, but it also won an Oscar for its visual effects. Granted, we don't know just how much of that budget was spent on specifically VFX, but we do know that Godzilla Minus One's entire price tag was only about 15 million bucks. But why exactly is this such a big deal? Why was there so many people vocally celebrating this achievement? It's not like Godzilla hasn't won awards in the past. Well, the truth is, Godzilla Minus One's achievement may not only change the trajectory of Goji and Toho itself, but also the film industry as a whole. But that's enough stalling. Let's go ahead and bow in, so I can explain why Godzilla Minus One's Oscar really matters. So right off the bat, we got to discuss what this success means for the Japanese film industry and Goji's home court at Toho. Whether you like it or not, Godzilla and kaiju films as a whole were seen as lower quality, cheap, and generally just bad before the MonsterVerse and Pacific Rim brought more widespread appeal to the genre. And even though I love the Showa and Heisei era movies, let's be fair here, they kinda were bad. Not all of them, obviously, but the thing is, a lot of people's impressions of Godzilla were formed by the Showa era reruns of the character, because during the Heisei, and especially the Millennium period, there were movies being released that we never even knew about in America for years. I know I'm not the only Godzilla fan who had no idea Final Wars was a thing, or that it marked the beginning of a decade-long slumber until I was looking up news about the 2014 movie. And with that little bit of history out of the way, you all know the rest. The MonsterVerse was financially successful and breathed new life into our favorite monster kings, as well as re-sparking interest in another Japanese-helmed Godzilla movie, which led to the widely loved Shin Godzilla, as well as a few anime movies that were absolute trash, and an anime series that was nonsensical but a little fun at points. Just to comment on all of those real quick, am I alone in wishing that they would just turn some of the old comics or movies into animated films and cartoons instead? Everyone realizes we've only had one cartoon that was dedicated to Godzilla fighting other monsters, and that was the show based on the TriStar movie, which, ironically enough, is the only cartoon of Godzilla that is still widely loved. We really just need, like, a spectacular Spider-Man show for Godzilla, where it's just a celebration of the franchise's history. I'm sorry, I got way off track, but back to my point. I didn't bring up all of this history to make the video longer or anything else like that, but instead to help us get into the mindset of a Toho higher-up over the last decade. Putting ourselves in those shoes, we have a monster that is iconic worldwide, yet the vast majority of his films are not. However, 2014's American release shows there's a market again. So for our movie, we give it to a director with a strong track record, and we have even more success. Then we fumble a bit with the anime trilogy while the Western movies continue to grow, and now we land at the release of Godzilla vs. Kong and the beginning stages of Godzilla Minus One. As much as I believe King of the Monsters is grossly underrated, and as silly as I think GVK is, it is undebatable that thanks to the rematch of the Millennium, both monsters are now household names again. Yet, this new movie we've been working on overseas is different. This interpretation is dark, and for the first time in a long while, genuinely scary. Sorry, Shin Godzilla fans, but this is too funny. Nah, this isn't another hero version of Godzilla. This is a true embodiment of terror, disaster, and psychological distress. But would a malevolent Goji have legs in today's climate? And what about the father of this brainchild? Yeah, he's been making films for a hot-ass minute, but none of them have reached worldwide acclaim, and this movie is being made for pennies compared to its Western counterpart, and to top it all off, it's a period piece. Can this movie even work? Well, hell yeah, it can. This motherfucker took you straight to the Oscars, baby, and walked away with an award for its effects, as well as critical and commercial praise worldwide. So what are we learning here? Well, besides being a triumph of just solid-ass storytelling, Minus One also managed to curb stomp a Marvel release and became rewarded for its visual effects, despite the budget. Now let's take a step back here and scope out the big picture. Disney is the #1 big name player in the world when it comes to entertainment. They are more widely known in homes around the world than the middle children actually living there, and have rights over some of the most beloved franchises ever. Yet, they still lost to you, a foreign period piece. And to add a bit of insult to injury, Godzilla himself is so hard to make on film for modern audiences that his last 3 American movies experienced delays to make sure his effects were up to snuff. Matter of fact, visual effects in general is responsible for a lot of the budget that goes into blockbusters these days. But again, they still lost to you a budget that doesn't even cover their acting costs. It's very important that people realize good movies have always been around, okay? Regardless of the time frame. But as you've seen by a number of salty YouTuber reviews, blockbusters themselves have pretty decisively seen a decline in quality. Well, now we have a certified foreign blockbuster, which means the doors to the mainstream audiences have been blown wide open. So for Japan, this shows that even without the bloated revenue of Hollywood, they can still make a mainstream movie that not only looks great, but also beats out the titans in the West. Provided the subject material has enough appeal, that means a number of properties are ripe for another home run, especially if they're relevant worldwide. But I hear you. What about us? The America. What does Godzilla Minus One mean for our movies? For one thing, it shows we kinda need to reevaluate how we structure our films. You could have replaced Godzilla with a sock puppet, and Minus One still would have had strong character writing. I don't think I'm alone when I say I cared more about Shikishima than the entirety of the cast from Marvel's Phase 4. But second, more is not always better. Budgets have been in the hundreds of millions for a while, but I'm sorry, the Marvels or Quantumania didn't exactly look like they needed to spend over $60 million on visual effects. It reminds me of the Sonic redesign. Like, this is just a bad design, yeah? And this is just a good one. If this were rendered in less polygons, that doesn't diminish that it still looks better than the other. I feel like MODOK and crap like this can't be saved from an inherent flaw in the way it's supposed to look. That's why stuff like the Sandman sequence from Spider-Man 3 still holds up. It's just beautiful, even if the effects aren't of the greatest visual fidelity. Yeah, we need to take a step back and focus on telling stronger stories, not bigger ones. Because as Minus One has demonstrated, now the doors are open for other people to not only compete with Hollywood, but beat them. And that's always been the case, but not really for blockbusters themselves, which is why this is so important. Shit, dude. Could you imagine if Japan had any superheroes of their own that they could turn into big successes like Marvel? Oh wait! Yeah, surprise, this video is now getting into manga and anime, as well as providing a soft tribute to Akira Toriyama, who created the single biggest influence in my life. I think the best thing that Godzilla Minus One showed is that with the right person and the right property, they have just as much staying power as Western IPs. The funny thing about it is that it wasn't even the monster, the icon itself, that got all the acclaim. Yeah, it may have taken the award, but everybody was talking about the people in the movie. That just tells me that if they took somebody with a genuine passion and gave them $10 million to make a movie on, let's say, Berserk, it could easily end up as a worldwide success as well. Or how about that guy I alluded to earlier, Goku? Shonen anime is ripe for the picking, provided you give it to somebody with a genuine love and vision for the property and not f***ing Netflix. However, Godzilla does have one major thing over all of the manga properties. Or should I say, it lacks one thing. And that's a sense of purism. Don't get me wrong, there are plenty of gatekeepers in the Godzilla fanbase, but Godzilla has always been the kind of monster that's just kind of splashable when it comes to the type of movies he's in. While I believe that shonen heroes can easily go toe-to-toe in the movie category with Western capes, I also think they should not be entirely married to the source material. That doesn't mean you change everything, right? Like Dragon Ball in high school, that's pretty fucking dumb. But establishing Piccolo and Kami and Saiyans a bit earlier, that's actually a pretty good idea. So to summarize, Godzilla Minus One's Oscar not only means that a smaller budget can go toe-to-toe with Western blockbusters, but if Hollywood doesn't watch out, they could be overtaken entirely by the treasure trove of Eastern IPs that just need the right director. But what do you think of Godzilla Minus One taking the Oscar? did I leave anything out of this potential analysis? And what are some Japanese franchises that you'd like to see come back? Besides, obviously, Gamera. Make sure you let me know down below, and if you enjoyed the video, please feel free to like and subscribe. It always helps. But until next time, I'm bowing out, and I'll see you all in the word season.